if you think about just the pace at which our lives operate at this point, it's amazing to me how little time we actually spend on anything but the urgent and the important. And getting clarity requires you to stop and to reflect.
Welcome to the Going Long Podcast. We're back once again to continue to help to educate you so that you feel much more comfortable as well as confident investing beyond your backyard. And yes, I'm your host, Billy Keels, and I am really looking forward to you listening or watching today's conversation because it's absolutely awesome. This is one that is definitely going to positively impact your life, and I cannot wait for you to actually take in the content. So before we get there, though, I got to talk about a couple things. Thank you very much. You continue to download, to share, and to have conversations with conversations that we're having with our guests here on the podcast. And also, so many of you are continuing to leave your honest written reviews as well as ratings. And I know, look, hey, maybe you still are just thinking about it, and every time you say you're going to do it. But listen, if you just want to understand how to leave a written review, an honest written review, as well as a rating on the Apple Podcast platform, we've made a link here. All you need to do is click the link and it'll take you through it step by step. And just, think about one episode that's brought a little bit of value to you and you want to leave an honest review and rating. We'd really appreciate that. And also let us know what you like. Let us know what you want us to change, what you want to see more of, things like that. So counting on you to continue to do that. So thank you very much. And also so many of you, because you ask week after week, how do you get the last episodes? Or how do you find episodes that happened in the very beginning when Billy was stumbling over every single word, not just every other word? You can go to billykeels.com. Once you're there, find the podcast tab and you can see every single episode that's ever been released. Once again, go to billykeels.com. Once you're there, just go to the podcast tab and you can check out every single episode. And lastly, for those of you who are accredited investors and you want to connect with other accredited investors, send me an email. All you need to do is send me an email to aiclub@billykeels.com. Put it in the subject that you want to chat about the Accredited Investor Club, and we'll get on a call. We'll set up a call and we can have a conversation. But first send an email to aiclub@billykeels.com and we'll get you taking the next steps from there. As it relates for today's conversation, this one is amazing. Hold on to your seats. Because if you've ever tried to figure out, as a very busy, high-paid professional, how you can create wealth without Wall Street, well, I know you know how to do some of that because you're here, but literally you're going to talk to one of the guys that actually created an entire community around this. And so really focused on helping you to gain more control over the aspects of your life that are the most important to you, that help you to get to the benefits that you're looking for, and doing it with you taking the responsibility. One of the reasons that you're here is because you want that responsibility. You want to have more ideas around how you can create your strategy, how you can create the specific tactics that are going to help you and your family get to the goals that you really want. And today's conversation is absolutely going to be able to take it to another level to help you get there even faster. Today's conversation with Joy Mure, which is going to happen just after this. Are you looking for a way to get to long-distance investing success, but not spending all the effort? You want to do it in a way that's much faster and it doesn't cause as much pain? Well, listen, I can save you all of that stress. Just go to billykeels.com/7 mistakes and you can pick up your free PDF to help you on your road to long-distance investing success. So you know what? As a long-distance investor, if you're ready to generate your wealth without Wall Street, then guess what? Today's the conversation that you're going to want to listen to until the very last word. I promise you're going to want to listen to the very last word because today's guest, wow, is really awesome. Not only did he start his career, well, even before he started his career, he wanted to be an orthopedic surgeon, and I'm sure he's going to tell us some more about that. But then actually, once he really did get started in a professional career, he got started in the mortgage business. And so between orthopedic surgeon and mortgage business, want to find out why that all changed. But then a couple years later, then he also went into, decided to kind of generate a business opportunity because he and his business partner also like to create fresh ideas as well as build amazingly strong cooperative communities. And it gives me great pleasure today to welcome one of the co-founders of Wealth Without Wall Street, Mr. Joy Mure. Joy, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, Billy, thanks for having me.
Joy, this is going to be so much fun. I love energy, the focus, the things we've talked about so far. And I am absolutely positive, Joey, that the entire Going Long family is going to take so much out of today's conversation, so much positivity, and also be able to take away very practical, applicable things to help move their lives forward. So, but as you know, Joey, I like to ask everybody at least the same 5 questions. You're going to get 2 in the beginning. You're going to get 3 in the end. And then, well, in the middle, quite honestly, I have absolutely no idea what I'm going to ask you about. But as long as you're okay to get started, I'd like the Going Long family to start to get to know you. You ready?
Absolutely.
All right, awesome. So listen, everybody knows, and I already know the answer to this question, but I would love for you to share with the Going Long family, where do you live in the United States?
I am in the center of Alabama, in Birmingham, Alabama. It's the biggest city here. And I moved here in high school, ended up going to college nearby, met my wife, and just have ended up making this home for sure.
All right. Fantastic. So Alabama, Birmingham, it's a fantastic, fantastic place. I actually met my wife and she's from Barcelona. And so I've been here in Barcelona too for quite a number of years. Surprise, surprise. Also too, with that, love for you to share just the second question. What's the most positive thing that's happened to you in the last 24 hours?
I mean, there's a million things. When you have 5 daughters like I do, you got things just coming out of your ears. But I'll say yesterday, I asked my neighbor to help me build a platform that could be used for a zip line down in some woods behind our house. And I got to take my 7-year-old down there and surprise her to show her this new platform that she's going to be able to use for zip lining. And she's been so excited. She's telling all the other sisters. It was kind of like this special thing just me and her got to do. And then all of them are just like, Dad, this is so awesome. I can't wait to so that was super positive.
Oh, fantastic, man. Being able to share those moments are absolutely fantastic. Our boys are a little bit older now, but so those are cool, especially when they start sharing the stories with others. This is really, really awesome. I appreciate you sharing that. And also too, I kind of have to let you in on something. I try to do this really impossible task of telling your story as our guest in 3.5 seconds. Impossible, right? It's really impossible. You've been doing too many things, impacting too many lives positively to tell in 3.5 seconds. But the entire Going Long family forgives me like every single conversation. So hopefully you'll forgive me. But more importantly, could you do us a favor, Joey? Could you please share your own story in your backstory in your own words? And also too, along the way, if you could share maybe some of those really important decisions that you made to get to this point in your journey, and then you and I will see where the conversation goes from there.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I grew up, I told you where I live now, but I ended up here after many, many moves. My dad was in the military and subsequently joined the Salvation Army. And I don't know if you know much about the Salvation Army, but they actually moved us more times than the military did. They give you assignments basically. And so I was born in Texas. I moved to Panama City, Florida. I lived in Atlanta, Georgia, New Orleans, Louisiana, and then ended up here in Birmingham, like I said, in high school. And I think at that point, I was like, you know what? I'm good. I'm just going to stay right here. And what I'll say is it really was a blessing to have that kind of upbringing because I never met a stranger. I always had to be the guy constantly meeting people and putting myself out there because you can't just be a wallflower and move to all these places. So that was a tremendous gift. And some people didn't see it that way, but I did. And then, like I said, met my wife here, went to college. And you mentioned that I wanted to be an orthopedic surgeon. Well, that was when I was younger. And I don't know if you remember the movie The Fugitive with Harrison Ford.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know how many people ended up being orthopedic surgeons from that movie. But I mean, who doesn't want to like be the guy that someone comes in and they can't walk, or someone comes in and they don't have use of their limb or whatever it may be. And now they walk out of your office and they can't. Like you were the person that helped them to do that. And I think what I took away from that was, I not necessarily want to be a surgeon. I don't necessarily want to be that guy, but I want to be the person that impacts people's lives. Right. And once I found out that it was going to take me like 16 more years of college, I quickly determined that was not going to be, I was not going to be that guy. I loved learning, but I was ready to get out of school And so anyways, what that did is it led me to figure out what kind of, role would I play. And I started actually going into the ministry. I thought I was going to end up going into a college ministry and started going down that path. And God just kept closing doors for some reason. I didn't understand why. But I started interviewing people in the business world and just getting an idea, what could I do that would impact people and that I would enjoy? And the mortgage industry ended up coming to play. And I focused in on that for 11 years and did really well, built a great reputation here locally. But at some point, I met my now business partner at church, and then we started doing more work together. Like he would refer me clients, and he subsequently gave me a book, and he said, you know what, I'm going to start referring you people. You need to read this book so you can understand what we're up to, like how you can help us. And I'm like, okay, that's great. He said, that'll be $20. And I was like, are you serious? Like, man, business must be a little tight for you to be charging me $20 for a book that you want me to read to help you. Like, yeah. Anyway, I'm a cheapskate. So he knew if I didn't do it, if I didn't pay for it, I probably wouldn't read it. Anyway, that book changed my life, and I became a client of his at that point. And so 4 years into doing all the things in that book, implementing them personally, I started to see major changes for our family's future. And I started getting really fired up. I mean, if you think I'm fired up now, I was super fired up. And I went home from a conference one time. I remember this like it was yesterday. I was sitting next to Russ, and that's my business partner. And I was like, why don't more people know about this? Like, this is a game changer for people. And I looked around the conference. This was like all the practitioners of this in one place. And there was like 250 people for all of North America. And I was like, well, there's the reason. There's not enough people out there doing it. Yeah. And it was literally like I heard a voice saying, Joey, why don't you do it? And at the time, just give you context, I'm not bragging or anything like that, but I was making over $300,000 a year in the mortgage business. My wife was at home, stay at home she was pregnant with our fourth daughter at the time. As I mentioned, I have 5, but she was pregnant with number 4. And I was like, well, this is a lot to give up, to just go out on the limb and hope that people respond the way that I did. And anyways, I went home, told my wife, and she was immediate. She was like, you should absolutely do this. Wow. And I was like, okay, let's do it. 3 or 4 months later, I quit my job and went straight into this. And that was 2014. By 2016, Russ and I had broken off on our own and started the brand Wealth Without Wall Street. And as you know, the power of podcasting, we started a podcast right around that time. I think it was 2017, and started interviewing all these people. And that was the next step in our journey, was taking control of our finances, what we did up to that point, and then started interviewing all these specialists in passive income ideas. And all of a sudden, we started implementing those. And now it's led us to a point where we have a thriving community of over 5,000 people that have joined us on the same journey. And we've built out the process essentially that I followed unknowingly. I didn't realize I was in a process because it was just kind of,
that's what you're doing.
Yeah. Make a bump here and move here, whatever, pivot. Yeah. But ultimately, we now issue our passive income report every single month, and we're between $45,000 and $65,000 a month in passive income, not including our regular business. And we show people now every day through our coaches and our platforms how to do the exact same thing. And so you now look back at that 9-10-year-old boy who was thinking, I want to impact people's lives. Now people all over the world are hearing this message, and that impact is coming to fruition. So that's the short story.
Yeah. And so there's so many different things that I'm just hearing you talk about in that story, and maybe people will listen, and you're talking about the income that you're able to do on a passive basis. You're able to, and not including the businesses that you're owning, but it goes back to kind of what you started in the beginning, right? Seeing The Fugitive and realizing that you wanted to make an impact. And the fact that you've gone along this journey, as your family is growing, you really looked to see, okay, I'm in a career that most people would say is very successful financially. Your family's moving in the right direction, but you also had that ability to have the conversation with your wife. She had the clarity to say, hang on a second, I think you need to be doing this. And then you had the wherewithal to actually make the jump. A lot of people would say, hey, look, I'm making, mid 6-figure salary. Why would I ever move this? Why would I do something else? And as a result, it sounds to me, and I would love to have your take on this, but you're impacting even more people's lives positively since you moved on from a $300,000 type of role, $300,000 a year type of role.
Right. Well, it's totally true. And here's the thing that made that decision super easy is if you know your why behind what makes you thrive, like the actual vehicle doesn't matter. Right. So I was providing a great service to people by doing their mortgage, like being very good in my communication. I was giving people good advice and options and helping them through a somewhat arduous process. And that's great. But I knew that impact was limited. So that when I thought, man, if I could help people with a comprehensive, approach to their finances to help them provide financial freedom. Yeah. Now, that takes that impact to a whole new level. The income doesn't even matter. It was the why was pushing behind that. And so just as a takeaway, practically, as you're listening to this, I really want to challenge you to think about that. If you have clarity on that why, the decisions that you make are just so much easier after that point. Yeah. And actually, I don't want to throw in stuff too soon, but we have it. We created a course on this. And we call it the Passport. Funny enough, we're talking about, you're in Europe and I'm in the States, and you have to have a passport to go into places like what you're talking about. So, but once you get clear on the destination, right, you can get there much faster, much easier. And so the first step in our process we call is a goal. It's a GPS, so goal, plan, support. But if you have that goal, and we created a course that you can get clarity on this. When I become financially free, who will I be? What will I be doing or not doing? And who and what will I actually have? So be, do, and have. Yeah. But so you could create your own passport. Is essentially like a visioning exercise. And if you go to our website, wealth.wallstreet.com/passport, you can get that for free and be able to get clarity. It doesn't matter where in the world you live. Clarity is so critical. And so, not to derail our conversation, I just
No, I think that's perfect. And then, for someone, and just repeat it just to make sure everyone heard that, was wealthwithoutwallstreet.com/passport to be able to go to pick that up. And because we have a global audience, and you're a podcaster as well, you have a global audience. It's fantastic. So you can actually take those steps. And I'm a big believer, a proponent in what you said as well. When you have clarity, and I've mentioned this to people many, many times. Once you have clarity of thought or of vision, it gives you an amazing power to kind of do two things. Number one is decide on what it is that you want to do. And then secondly is to be able to act upon that and be able to move forward and not be distracted with all the other things that are happening. And, one of the things that, and I know we're going to move into the conversation, but I'm just curious because you work a lot with and help people to gain this clarity on mindset. And, you talked about it before. And initially when I got started living here in Europe and investing exclusively back in the United States, what I thought I was investing in was hard assets and real estate and stuff like that. But I also realized now it was really about having a different mindset, being able to get clear on what it was that I was trying to achieve. In the beginning, it was having more control over the financial outcomes of my life. That also, after doing a lot of work, I've realized that it's tied into a lot of other things, why I wanted to do it. But eventually, I also got to the conclusion that it doesn't really matter what type of opportunities you're investing in, as long as they're aligned with why you want to do or what benefit that you're looking for. But because you have a thriving community of thousands of people and you constantly are speaking to people and helping others get clarity of vision, what have you found that really is the big challenge? And specifically because we have a lot of high paid professionals that are here on the show, whether they're in IT software sales or sales leadership or, large executive companies or doctors and lawyers. But what have you found, Joey, that really stops people from actually taking that first step to be able to start to have more control over or gain that benefit that they're looking for in their lives?
I think it's different for people in all different kind of walks of life. I think busyness is a huge factor. If you think about just the pace at which our lives operate at this point, it's amazing to me how little time we actually spend on anything but the urgent and the important. And getting clarity requires you to stop and to reflect. Because, and I'll use this as an example, like most people that come to Wealth Without Wall Street, they hear the name and they say, well, what do you invest in? Well, why is that? Well, because they're curious, like hey, this sounds interesting to me. There must be some kind of magic bullet investment or multiple investments that could help me get what I want. But at the end of the day, the investment is not nearly as important as what is the result that investment creates that helps me get to where I want to go. And they haven't ever talked about or thought about, where do I want to go? They just think, well, I have money, I want it to grow, and it has to be some sort of, better return than what I'm getting in my stock portfolio or in my 401k or whatever it may be. Yep. And what we push back on is we say, you know what, if you don't have clarity of where you're headed, the investments don't matter. Yep. Right. And also, once you really gain clarity on where you're headed, that's why we start with that passport. Then you can move into defining your path. And the path, again, is not as important about the investment as it is about who you are as an investor. And so we have an assessment we take people through in that plan process that actually tells you what sort of investor are you? If this is where you're headed, now what sort of investor are you? What will you really resonate with? Is it more syndications like you and I've talked about off the show here? Is it more active type side hustle type deals like maybe land flipping or short-term rentals? Or is it just totally hands off like ATM funds? And those are things that we want to give you as you get clarity on where you're headed. Then you know who you are as an investor. Man, how much more confidence do you have then to run towards financial freedom? Yeah. You don't have the hesitancy anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. So I love that. Yeah. And you definitely don't have that hesitancy when two things happen. The number one is the clarity. And I love what you talked about in the very beginning, which was just the busyness, right? And I like to talk about that because there's so much business. And, I've recently not working in the corporate any longer. And I've also realized that even though I was doing things well, I felt like I was doing well, I was getting results. But when you are not as busy trying to get to the next urgent task, it's amazing when you can actually sit down and you can have clarity of thought and you can plan and do things that are very not just strategic, but then you can put in the tactical actions that need to support whatever that strategy or vision would be. And I like how you phrase that, but really starting out with busyness, because so many busy professionals by definition are going to the next thing and not taking a moment to really take stock of where they are, what they really want to achieve, why they want to achieve that, and gaining the clarity around that. So, wow, don't you just love this conversation? This is amazing. This is fantastic. And so just really quickly, I just wanted to remind you, for those of you that are looking to create more options for yourself, get there faster, and do that with long distance investing, make sure that you go to billykeels.com/7 mistakes to avoid so that you can avoid all those mistakes, get to your goals faster and sooner. Once again, that's billykeels.com/7 mistakes to avoid. Now back to the conversation.
Let me throw something in real quick.
Yeah, please.
And I don't mean to interrupt you, but
No, go right ahead.
Who, if you're listening to this right now, the chances are you've had a lot of great information, right? There's all kind of ideas, but the thing I want to kind of anchor this conversation with is two things. Wealth Without Wall Street, we've actually been talking about this a lot lately. We used to say that Wealth Without Wall Street exists to help people break free of the bondage and mindset of Wall Street. And we've just recently tweaked this. And we said, we really exist to help people break free of the mindset of having to trade time for money.
Yeah. Because
once you break that, now it's just a matter of, wait a minute, what have I been missing out on? And so this is still in the vein of this busyness. If you're that guy or gal who is driving to work and you're thinking, I really wish I could be at fill in the blank, my kid's soccer game. I really wanted to be able to coach this year, but it's just not the right year because I've got this on my plate. I've got so many things pulling at my time. Financial freedom is buying that time back with passive income. And that is where we're headed. So if you get really fed up with the idea that I have to tell my kid no about this, or I can't be at this particular event or this experience that I really would love to do, if you're not fed up with it, you're not going to take action. Once you're fed up with it, now you can break free of that mindset that you have to keep trading your time for money. And just this morning, I was meeting with a friend of mine and talking through this. He's been in the flooring industry for 21 years. And he was telling me a story of how his boss, every time he would hit a sales goal, he would say, oh, the percentage of what I'm paying you, that was this year. Next year, we're going to have to drop that. Instead of 30% of the profit, we're going to drop that to 25. And so what did he do? Okay, well, I'll just work harder, more hours, sell more to get the same income. And what happened the next year? You know what? I said 25%. It's 20% now. And so, man, break free of the idea that someone else has to pay you for your time. Your worth is not based on that. And so anyway, I'm going off on tangents, but
no, you're really not, because at the end of the day, and this is, what we are here to do is to continue to help each and every member of the Going Long family, those that have decided to invest their time with the two of us today that are looking for new ideas. And ultimately it is about being able to get to whatever the goal that you want for your life. And I know very few people that want to just continue to work more and more hours to have less and less control over whatever outcome it is for their life. So many times it's about being able to just have this conversation, help to gain more clarity around these types of thoughts. But most importantly, and here's where it's really up to you, whether you are running on a treadmill, whether you are, maybe just cooking dinner or whatever, is that you need to take the words that Joey is sharing now and really sit down, write them down, figure out what is the next step that you're going to take to begin to gain clarity and control over the outcomes and results that you want for your life. Right. I think that's really important. And just speaking of which, and I know one of the things that Joey, you like to share a lot, and I know everything is not necessarily tied to financial freedom. I know that this is something that we have talked about a lot. I know it's something that within your Wealth Without Wall Street community, you really take a lot of time to understand really what are the steps to getting to financial freedom. And I would love for you to share, maybe some of it you've already started to share with us, but kind of what, if someone had to really simplify it down and say, okay, well, look, I'm really busy. I want to get to this point where I have more control over the outcomes of my life, but I just literally don't know where to start. How would you break it down in kind of like 3 simple steps?
Yeah. So our book is coming out a little bit later this year. And I'm excited for that because it'll give another way for people to kind of digest this. But, think about it in terms of the whole theme of what I mentioned with the passport is the destination is so important. But until you have that, you can't really start the process of getting there. So if you think of your GPS, when you have a GPS, it's worthless without putting in the destination. So we do that through these 3 steps: goal, plan, and then support. We already talked about the goal being the vision of where you're headed, your destination. The plan then becomes about how am I going to actually get there? And I want you to think about like that app on your phone. When you put in the maps, you put in the destination, what does it do? A lot of times it gives you 3 or 4 options, right? One of them says fastest. One of them says fewer turns, whatever, but what do you always do? You want to go for the fastest, right? And especially when you get fed up enough and you want financial freedom bad enough, you're going to be like, how do I get there as fast as I can? And so the plan is really then aligning who you are as an investor and what you are doing with money currently. Will it get me closer to or farther from passive income? Let me give you an example. People will tell us, I want to be financially free in the next 5 years. And by the way, we have people that obliterate that in 18 months to 24 months all the time. But just as an example, they say 5 years. And let's say that they're 39 years old, 35 to 39. But they are actively putting money into things like 401ks, IRAs, and equity in their house. Like this is a legitimate thing. Like Billy, you're laughing, but this is the common way people have been told that they're going to be financially successful. And I was on that train when I was in the mortgage business. I didn't know what else to do. I thought this is what everybody was supposed to do.
I was there too.
Right. And what happens? So what they say is they want financial freedom in the next 5 years, which would put them at, let's say, 40 to 45 years old. And everything they're putting money into has no access until they're almost 60.
Yep.
Can you tell me, like, does it matter what the rate of return is in that 401k at that point?
Not at all.
Does it matter, like, if their house is appreciating fast or slow? Like, no, none of that matters. It's agreed. I have to have access to cash to make these things happen, to get to financial freedom as fast as possible. So my point is in that plan phase, we actually have courses that fit that, your investor DNA, finding out your assessment of who you are as an investor, critical. And then we have other things. We talk about infinite banking and probably don't have time to go into it today, but that is a cash system that gives you access and control of your money that you then leverage into these passive income ideas to get to financial freedom as fast as possible. There's no silver bullet here. I'm just saying you're literally aligning what you want with what you're doing with money so that there's not a disconnect. We want to get rid of all the disconnects so that you literally get there as fast as you can. And so that last step is support. Once you've got clarity on where you're going and what you're going to do, now you just need the people at the water cooler to be saying the same thing you are. I mean, what are the chances right now? You're listening to this podcast, you're investing in your own knowledge and your own kind of mindset. But what are the chances that the other 10 people at the water cooler are doing the same thing? It's not happening, I can assure you. And in fact, just like crabs in a barrel, you're going to throw out these ideas. You're going to say, man, I was listening to Billy the other day, and man, he was talking about this awesome syndication, and I think I may do it because I, got great returns. It aligns with where I'm headed. And I feel like, man, in the next 5 years, if I do more of this, I could just, have the freedom to leave this job if I wanted to. And what are the people around you going to say? Dude, don't do that. What are you thinking?
Yeah, like, stay here. We're great.
That thing's going to fail. How do you know this? Blah, blah, blah. They're going to make you question and they're going to pull you back in. So the support piece to us is so critical. Be in a community of other people that are headed towards the same direction. They may not be doing the same strategy as you, right? Maybe they're less active or less passive as you. Maybe you have to be more passive because of your time constraints and resources, but they're still all heading in the same direction. And the chance of success, I don't even know the percentage, but it's got to be a big number to get you to financial freedom as fast as possible.
Much higher. So I appreciate you breaking that down in those, 3 simple steps to really look at having the goal, having the plan, and then being able to have the support. Look forward to the book that's going to be coming out later on, hopefully. Well, depending on when this, because this is going to go on forever, but they may be listening to this sometime in the future, and its book's already out. But
I'm trying to create some accountability for myself by saying that. Like,
there you go.
2022, this summer, 2022. I'm hoping and praying it's done.
All right. Fantastic. So there you go. Timestamp it. One of the things that, but before we kind of get into the going along final 3, because I think this is one of the things that maybe is not given enough light. I know it's not one of the things I thought about enough early on. It's something that I've become aware of, and a lot of the different strategies that I will employ or help others, more importantly, to also employ have to do with this kind of, some people would say it's a 33-letter word, which is tax or taxes. Maybe a 5-letter word, I guess, if we go there. But I'm just curious, just kind of, where do you see the thought process in many people in terms of the implications that taxes can have on their ability to get to whatever that benefit or that result that they're truly looking for in their life? Because I think it's one of the things that maybe is not talked about enough.
So restate that a little bit. I want to make sure
Yeah. So a lot of times people look at a specific opportunity and they're saying, hey, I want to do this, I want to do that. And, you talked about the 401k earlier, or qualified money. And a lot of times, many people, if you're just taking it at the first level, you don't think about, okay, well, what is the tax implication on this specific decision that I'm making? I'm not saying that there's a right or wrong answer, but I just find that many times when people are getting started, they're not thinking about the tax implications. So I would be curious as to how you have either this conversation or how you also help people to become much more enlightened about, the tax implications on decisions that they're making.
Yeah. So a couple thoughts on this. One, tax deferment does not mean tax savings. Write that down. Make that just kind of a part of your vocabulary. Tax deferment, to be honest, I'm going to give you a picture so that this will stick with you. And it's, I guess, from my mortgage days. If you're sitting down to close on a piece of property and you're going over the documents with them, and you get to that note, like the mortgage note, and they start going down, they say, you're buying this property at XYZ Street, Birmingham, Alabama, and you're buying it for this price. You're looking for some key things, right? The address, the name, the purchase price. This is the loan amount that you owe and how long you're going to pay it back over. And then subsequently, there's this one line that says interest rate. You get down to that document and then you get down to that one line. And in the percentage area, it says TBD. What are the chances that you're going to go through with the closing and just sign that document at the bottom?
Probably not very high. I would say pretty low.
There is 0%. There's never been one person I've asked that said, oh yeah, that's no big deal. I'm sure that they've got my best interest in mind, no pun intended. And I'm just going to sign it and hope for the best. That would be ludicrous, right? I'm committing myself to an unknown number of interest that somebody can just decide at some arbitrary time what they want to charge me. Yep. That would be irresponsible at best. Well, that's exactly what tax deferment is. Because guess what? If you ask whoever it is that's telling you that to defer your taxes is a good idea, ask them, well, tell me what the tax bill will be whenever I do need to start pulling that money out. They cannot give you an answer. Not even until the year that you pull that money out will the tax professional be able to tell you what that bill is.
Yep.
So tax deferment is not a tax savings. It is a hidden killer for whatever your retirement or whatever your vehicle is that you're saving in. The second thing I would say is in light of that is people get scared of paying tax today because they're like, oh, if I could defer it, then why wouldn't I do that? I don't want to have to pay the tax today. Well, number one, you have a known number. And number two, that's the time you need to get a tax strategy group to help you save on taxes today, not just defer them, but literally reduce them today. And I don't pretend to be an expert in that. We actually have tax specialists, like people who this is what they do, not accounting. They do the tax strategy. Where they look to the tax code and they reduce your taxes today. And same thing with like syndications. When you can use depreciation and bonus depreciation and things like this, that is literally getting rid of that tax today and getting rid of the variable. You don't need variables when it comes to this stuff.
I love the way that I've not heard it put or described in that way. With your permission, I will use that in the future at some point in time, because I think it's a brilliant way to describe it. And it is a similar conversation because no one knows the tax future. We have a pretty good indication of which direction they will be going. But yeah, until the actual year, and you don't really know where things are going. So I appreciate you just giving us that highlight in terms of the way to think about tax in terms of the way that it can be, how it can impact any investments that are made. But here's the thing, Joy, like you're helping us share so much information and giving us very clear ideas. You've given us a couple different ways that we can find out how you can even the Going Long community can go and find assessments and get even more clarity in terms of where they are and where they want to go. You've given us a 3-step process, but like the thing is, we got to kind of get into the Going Long Final 3. But Joey, I never ask anybody the Going Long Final 3, and because today you're our special guest, we're never going to go there unless you tell me that you're ready. So, are you ready?
I'm always ready.
You were born ready, man. Of course you were ready. Of course. I would expect nothing less. So here we go. So the very first of the Going Long Final 3, we started with you over there on that side of the pond, which is my home country side of the pond back in the U.S. And I'd like to bring it back over this side of the Atlantic here in Europe, where I am now. Help us understand, Joy, what is your favorite European city that you've either visited or is still on your bucket list to visit?
Well, I am super limited in this area in terms of experience. I've been to London and loved it, but I would say my bucket list is, they call me the Italian stallion on our podcast. And that's because both sides of my family are from the Sicily area. And I would love to get over there and visit. There's some family there that I've never met over in the Augusta area of Sicily. Mm-hmm. And so anyways, that would be the place.
Okay, Siciliani. Okay, perfect. I love that. So we'll go with Sicily because it's just a wonderful place. Many people know that I lived in Sardinia, so just the cousin to the north there, many years ago now. But and I have a special place in my heart for Italy as well. So there we go. Listen, so the second of the Going Long Final 3 really has to do with a lot of the experience that I've had with successful people. And I consider you to be someone who's very successful for a number of different reasons. I know the Going Long family is actually getting more insight into that today. And I guess one of the things, Joey, that I've recognized with really, really successful people is that one of the main reasons that they become very successful faster than most is that, unlike most people, they get things right the first time and they don't make any of the mistakes. Did I just say that? I think I just messed that up. No, it's kind of an inside joke. It's an inside joke with me and the Going Long family. Don't worry, I do that by design. It's on purpose. So here's the thing. Everybody makes mistakes, Joey. You know that. I know that. We all know that. But what few people understand is that the people that are the most successful, they make a whole lot more mistakes than everybody else, like a whole lot more. And the reality is, and this is no joke, this is serious, they do one thing very, very differently than most people. And it's that, especially those mistakes that are the most relevant mistakes or that have the biggest impact, that every time they stop, they learn from those mistakes. And very importantly, they take what they've learned and they put strategies, tactics in place to minimize the probability of that exact same thing happening to them in the future. And so if you can think of whether you call it a learning experience or a mistake or a growth opportunity or whatever, if you can think of that, but not really what happened to you then, what is the lesson that you took away that that the Going Long family needs to hear from you today? What would that one lesson be?
My brain is swimming here because there's so many possible things. I would say that I look back at the time that I wasn't investing in myself, right? I look at what I know today about what to do with money, the passive income investing ideas and strategies that I've been able to take advantage of. I had turned that side of my brain off when I was in the corporate world and just putting money away into my 401k. And I don't mean to beat up on this. I'm just being like legit. Yeah. If you think about this, if you're just one of those people that's putting money into your 401k right now, I asked this of a guy that I was talking to this morning. When's the last time you thought about, man, I wonder what I should be using, like investing that money in? It never enters your mind, right? Because it's not an option. It's at arm's length, and it's a limited choices that you can put that money to work in terms of investment vehicles, certain mutual funds, certain things, whatever. But you have possibly large amounts of money in those places. So my point is this: when I started putting money into my control, I started to have to tell it what to do. And it forced me to be creative, forced me to get good mentors. It forced me to talk to experts and to get into places that I would have never gotten involved with. And so my I guess advice would be learn from that mistake and start being much more curious about what you can do with cash, especially once take the action right now to quit putting money in those places. Like I'm not afraid or ashamed to tell you, you can do way better than they can with your money without all the risk. It's just a tremendous turn of events when you start putting that money in your control and then forcing yourself to get creative on what to do with it.
Yeah, love that. So, and it starts by being able to invest in yourself, being able to also have that ability to be more responsible over your own assets. So, absolutely, the risk can go down, and the responsibility will go up. So, I love that. I love that. And so, just to bring it home, Joey, what I always want to help everybody feed their mind before we get out of here. So, what is the one book that you would recommend to the Going Long family today?
I would be remiss if I didn't share the book that changed everything for me was, and you've probably talked about on the show before because it's gaining a lot of popularity in the last, 10 years, but Becoming Your Own Banker by R. Nelson Nash. He was a personal mentor of mine. He lived here in Birmingham until he passed a couple years ago. And in fact, I have a picture of my daughter sitting at his bedside in the hospital, weeks before he died. And it's super, super special to me. But again, the ideas in that book will challenge you to think differently, to challenge what you've always thought to be possible, and essentially create that imagination that you've probably shut off.
Fantastic. So Become Your Banker. And we're going to include that in the show notes as well. And it's one that we have heard, and also I want to make sure that the entire Going Long family hears that from you as well. So, I think just even from the very beginning, and you talked about being part of a family with the Salvation Army and moving around. I actually moved around a whole lot as a kid as well, like all over the United States, because my parents they just wanted to move. They weren't doing the Salvation Army or anything. They just, I think, wanted me to be the weird kid in class all the time. But eventually, hey, listen, now, like you said earlier, I'm fine going anywhere. From that, and then also, wanting to be able to be that person that made an impact. You talked about the fugitive, but but, and whether that was when you got started in your career, although you weren't an orthopedic surgeon, you did, go out and make lots of impact in lives for 11 years while you were in the mortgage business. And then you realized like, hey, listen, there's another way for you to also be able to make a large impact, and walking away from a nice, healthy 6-figure salary to be able to move into an area where, hey, listen, that a lot of people needed to hear a specific message. You've shared some of those messages with us today. You've helped to give us a very clear 3-step process on how people can go about really starting to gain clarity on how they can become financially free with their GPS. You've also talked to us about some of the different tools, some of the different ideas, the community that you have that is continuing to thrive. And I know that there's so many people that are part of the Going Long family, that all this stuff that you've talked to us about and all of the things that you're continuing to do. You even talked about a book that should be coming out in September of 2022. Help us to understand, Joey, what is the best way for the Going Long family to find out more about what you're doing, what you and Russ are doing, and the Wealth Without Wall Street family are doing?
Well, you'll notice our social media is pretty limited because we focus all of our attention on our private app, which if you follow that initial link that I mentioned before, wealthwithoutwallstreet.com/passport, that not only gives you access to the course, but also free membership into the app. You can download it on your phone once you join so that you can get updates and access to us. In fact, I love when people hear us on the show, join the community, and then there's a DM function within the app. So DM us, hit me up, say, hey, I heard you on Billy's show. This is awesome. And I'd love to connect with you there.
Awesome. Okay. Fantastic. And so we will leave the links in the show notes. Make it really, really easy. Listen, Going Long family, go over there. Once you get into the Wealth Without Wall Street app and the family, let Joey know that, hey, listen, you heard him here and we chatted and you were motivated to reach out and find out more about what they have going on. So Joey, I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, man, for investing your time with me, with sharing your experience, as well as not just with me, but also with the Going Long family. Thank you so very much.
Absolutely, man. The world needs more shows like this. So I'm glad to be a part of it.
All right. Thank you very much. And Joy, if you give me just like 5-10 seconds to say the last words to the Going Long family. Once again, really appreciate everything that you continue to do, Going Long family, the fact that you invested your time once again, hearing these wonderful, not just words, but the actions and also the different tools that Joey and Russ have put at your availability. And listen, take action today. Don't wait until tomorrow. Don't think about it more. Just to take a second and to get involved, join their app, and take the next step right now. So I know until the very next conversation, I'm really looking forward to welcoming you back. So go out and make it a great day. And thank you very much. Wow. Don't you love hearing from top-notch experts in the field? When I was getting started, I really wish that I would have had access to such experts. And even more, I wish they would have given me like a really simple list of things to follow so that I could have gotten to my goals much faster and been much happier even sooner. So that's why I've created for you the 7 things that you should avoid in order to be successful in long distance investing. And you can pick that up really easily by going to billykeels.com/7 things to avoid. And also, if you liked today's episode, don't forget to leave a 5-star review. I'm looking forward to seeing you on our very next episode. So go out and make it a great day.